Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Great season finale, maybe a series finale. It's unclear at this point in time, but still great episode regardless. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So immediately picking up at the premiere, and obviously because Scott and Ramona can't kiss, the assumption is like, all right, the exes are behind this. So we kind of like start going through the exes, but all of them are like, dude, we have nothing to do with this, which is so interesting because, I just love that it's just like every time Scott was ready to fight one of them, it's like, nope, we have nothing to do with that. I love how like Ken and Kyle were like, actually, we were reading from this like book or whatever because they said Scott Pilgrim, but it's like, no, like our robot tells us we're actually bros in the future. So see you later, bro. I think the first one up was Todd because they were like, are you the one behind this? And Todd's like, dude, I have a new obsession. I'm totally over Ramona. Like the person he's after now is Wallace. And Wallace is like, yo, sparks aren't real. You got to get over it, Todd. Move on. You know, because he was up there dumping all loads of butter on his pocket. He's like, a little more, just more. Now keep going. Oh, that's enough. No, actually keep going. Now double it. You know, he's like, oh, you destroyed my thing of butter. I mean my popcorn. Poor guy's going through it. Lucas shows up taking out some paparazzi, but then like so does Roxy. She helps out as well. Matthew's there with Julie, so they have nothing against like, it's like, yo man, I'm put behind that whole evil thing to me. It's like, if you don't want to handshake me, that's okay, bro. I get it. We've got to work our way up to that. So, and then Matthew's like, whoa. I don't want to even be wasting my voice on you because I should be saving it for the musical. So it's like, wow, none of your exes had anything to do with it. And I love Scott being like, what? No fighting? No kissing? This finale sucks. And I'm like, so who's behind it? Because it even crossed my mind. I'm like, did Envy? I mean, I know Envy literally doesn't care, but I'm like, could it be she does care? I was like, no, I guess not. I'm like, who else would be motivated to like do all this? That's the thing I just couldn't completely understand. It never crossed my mind we got the reveal that we did, that it's not just older Scott, it's even older Scott. This is Scott 10 years in the future from 14 years in the future. So this is Scott 24 years into the future, but it's like interesting. I do love, because we left that plot thread open because like, yeah, like Scott just left after like, you know, old Scott was just kind of like left after everything. And so obviously we kind of got closure with Wallace and regular Scott and like future Ramona, but like that, it makes sense that why that plot thread would still be there, because I love that everyone got dragged there, but I think it speaks volumes. Who didn't get dragged there is Wallace. And like literally everyone, well, Stacy didn't get dragged there either, because it's like, right, I'm not going to drag my sister into this, but it's like, I guess it's also because apparently like Wallace finally kicked him out in the future, and so he like found out, for him it's like nothing changed in the future, so he knew that his life still played out the same, which kind of answers a question I had previously of like, what rules of time travel are we using? Are we using the rules of once a new timeline is created, the previous one disappears? But based on what he's saying, it's supposed to be like nothing in my future changed, meaning that everything still played out the way. You still went out with Ramona, so he spent the next 10 years training up, because he isn't just going after Scott, he's coming after everybody, because he also, I'm sure he wants to take it out on the exes too, because it's if it weren't for you and having to fight you guys and Ramona, so it's like everyone's catching hands, you know? So I just thought that was so dope, and it's so sad. I mean, obviously he's like so heartbroken and bitter, and obviously Ramona tries to go up against him because like Scott gets knocked away because he's got all these powers. I even love Gideon was like, man, you kind of he's like, hey bro, I respect the evil plan. I was actually in the middle of one of mine, because him and Julie like gloated about them wanting to blow up Matthew's play, and it's like, don't worry dude, like when it was all said and done, like the only people that would have gotten hurt would have been the crew, but even Lucas is like, oh come on dude, come on man. Come on, Gordon, that's not cool. It's like, yeah, but it's like, yeah, some of the crew might have gotten hurt or whatever, but that's about it. No one else would have gotten hurt. It's just, yeah, it's my marvelous evil plan. I even love Julie's like, yeah, I'm here to support him with his evil plan. I'm like, she's a real ride or die. That's actually really adorable. But yeah, like, I love it. It's like, yeah, it's old Scott versus everyone. He's kind of got his Master Roshi thing going on. I mean, obviously, like, it's so interesting that, I mean, I guess it's also playing into the ending of, like, once again, like, even the comic and the movie, where it's like, well, in the movie, they don't really go into it, but, like, I think it's much more of an extensive thing, or at least it's a different thing in the comic of, like, the whole evil Scott thing. So we're, like, shifting out a little bit. It's like, oh, it's Scott even further in the future who's even sadder and angry and bitter about their whole relationship and heartbreak. And he put himself in 10 years of isolation. He's like, oh, I've been living like a month, which Ramona was like, is that true? Or did you just not leave the house for, like, 10 years? And he's like, oh, you sound like my wife. Understandable. So, but I love everyone like chipping into this fight. And just a little thing that I think is kind of interesting, like, even though Scott's kind of getting his ass handed to him, like present day Scott, like during the fight, like when Ramona's hammer got destroyed, which I love, it's like plus, I had to rewind because I didn't catch it at first, it says plus 10 against elders. That's sick. That's disgusting. And that's all kinds of fucked up. It's like, oh yeah, this is, I mean, it makes sense, but it's still fucked up. Of like, yeah, oh, this is extra effective against the elderly. But the fact is that Knives went over to check on Ramona. It's like, oh, do you have anything in your bag? And she like pulled out weapons for everyone, gave Knives. Todd got some like enhanced like veggies that kind of activate his vegan powers. Lucas got a skateboard. Roxy got a sword. So... But this was like some Dragon Ball Z shit. Like I said, he's on his Master Roshi because he's getting like buffer and buffer, especially being older. But he'd even called out Knives saying that she needed to like respect her elders, whatever. And he started killing everybody. But to be fair, it's like no one dies. Like everyone kind of respawns at home, which I thought was interesting too. Like everyone that like ended up respawning back in the theater rather than being home. So I'm like, I wonder if they're changing. Well, I guess your respawn point, like maybe it's because of the circumstances that they were there because of old Scott, so them dying there just returned them to reality. I don't know. Or because Ramona did, well, at one point she did absorb like one of his energy blasts, but it kind of destroyed her back. So I'm like, is that gone forever? Damn, that sucks. I guess that power is just too much for her bag of... God, what was the term? I've used it before. I just can't remember. Impossible space. That's the term I'm looking for. A bag of impossible space. Kind of sad that she ended up losing it. We don't really see later on whether or not she gets a version of that back, or is that just like going forever. But yeah, like, also your boy Scott, regular Scott, has got his shirt off and everything. Once again, he just looks like a battered, like, I mean, it's not even just DBZ. We're talking, I mean, this, you know, it's, even though it's MA, it's still, like, shonen based. You know, it definitely leans into the shonen. I love that he's like, oh, wait. And he ties his shoe back, and then both of them fighting him at the same time. It's just, dude, it's so dope. And just, like, how crazy and unhinged old Scott is. But, in the end, even older Ramona shows up, which is like age unknown, but still don't ask. And she's like, right, for 10 years, you didn't even send me a text or anything. But he was like, yeah, but, you know, wait, I thought we were done. She was like, yeah, but I just wanted space, dude. He's like, oh, so does that mean so even after these 10 years, we could still get back together? And she's like, no, dude, that's moved on. But it's like, we had a chance beforehand, but then you went silent on me. And it ends up being this beautiful realization for Ramona where she's meeting, like, you know, her future self. And it is that thing of, you know, she's here with her Scott, because there's a conversation of even Ramona starting to wonder, like, maybe he's right. Like, look at future you. Like, I don't really want to date a guy like that. But for Scott, it's like, I'm not going to become him. It's like, but can you say for sure? And it's like, no. But that was Scott's points of like, you made your choices, let me make mine. But, you know, by the laws of time travel in older Scott's mind, it's like, dude, if I'm here, that means you still make the same choices. But it's like, yeah, like not everything's set in stone. But future Ramona shows up, and it made Ramona realize, like, right, what has she always done? Because Scott had called her, older Scott was like, oh, yeah, sure, run away from love. That's what you always do. And it made her look back on all the relationships. Like, anytime, like, things got serious, every time they were on the cusp of love, she would just run away. She'd bail and move on to the next person, and she doesn't want to run anymore. And so, future her and them form together. And I love the whole, like, oh my God, it's like Sonic 3, yeah, Sonic 2. I mean, no, you're right, Sonic 3. and she becomes like this golden being. I mean, once again, on the DBZ level, it's, I mean, I'm not well versed in Sonic, but my mind immediately went to like a DBZ, like fusion. And I just thought it was so amazing. It's like, yeah, like you're both Ramonas, the one that knew older Scott and the one that just met him. And it kind of gave them perspective on everything. So she's not going to beat up older Scott. In fact, she's going to send him back to his time so that he can fix things. It's like, right, like it's not too late to start trying to repair things. Like, so sends him back, as she talks to young Scott. It's like, right, I love you, Scott, and I don't want to be that person who runs away anymore, but that is going to be a part of me. So sometimes you are going to have to remind. I won't have the easiest time saying it after this, but going forward, just remind me that that I'm not that person. That basically I ran away in the past, sure, but that doesn't have to define me now. I can make different choices, just like Scott can make different choices. So. And now they end up breaking through, because I forgot to talk about it, that it was basically what was it? AK nanomachines that prevent them from kissing. They're anti-kissing nanomachines that were put in his drink 14 years into the future from last episode. So, but now they can actually properly kiss. Which now I'm trying to wonder. I'm like, is that supposed to imply like that did happen, but none of them will remember it, because it's a thing of like, yeah, this sequence happened and maybe Scott remembers it. So like Scott experienced all of it, but when they all pop back, none of them remember. That's why I'm like unclear on what that means. But by the time they've come back, the show is over. Everyone's raving about it. It's like, we even find out later on he got like 27, he won 27, Tonys, Matthew did, for that play and everything, the musical. So it went off, very successful. And I'm just like, and then Ramona and Scott are just kissing like crazy. And I was like, oh, it's a happy ending. Then all the bombs got disarmed by Matthew's girls, and he ends up giving everything back to Gideon or Gordon, because he's like, dude, do you think I want to be CEO? It's so stressful. He's like, I've lost billions. Just let me have my musical and stuff like that, and you could have everything back. And it's like, oh yeah, sure, thanks, buddy. And Julie's there like wiping away a tear, like, oh good. And then like the three evil shadows of them laughing, like ha ha ha, maniacal. I'm like, okay, so I guess they're just gonna keep up the evil thing. I guess. And just like we get to the epilogue after the fact of just like, yeah, everyone kind of goes their separate ways. And we catch up with everyone. Todd's up there doing the vegan thing, hanging out with Roxy. Lucas is working at the coffee shop, which Stacy likes it because it's like, yeah, it's annoying, but hey, I get to see his butt and there's lots of tips. I'd almost thought because of the ending where Roxy was like, whatever. And then Lucas was almost like, because I guess no one had really tossed it back at him. It's like, yeah, that whatever's kind of my thing. But part of me was like, is there going to be kind of a Kim and Lucas thing? I didn't know, but it seemed like that's not where that went. I mean, it didn't go that way, but I mean, it felt like it could have. I think it's also interesting the rental store they work at gets shut down. It's like, well, it makes sense because it's supposed to be like, I guess, sadly, like a lot of those like blockbuster type of things like ended up kind of dying in real life. So, which is so interesting considering we know that Ramona like delivered like DVDs for Netflix, and this is on Netflix, and Netflix was kind of the blockbuster killer. So it's just the rental in general killer. So it's just it's fascinating. So also, Sex Bomb has knives. She's officially a member of it. So just everyone's all doing their own thing, and Ramona's, she's not even delivering stuff anymore because now she I guess because of the situation on the Scott Pilgrim movie, she's now just like a stunt double now. I guess she actually, because she found out, I guess through that movie, that she really liked it. She's actually good at it, so she's sticking with it. So that's actually dope. There's also this interesting thing that I haven't talked about, because obviously the whole shtick of like Ramona like constantly changing her hair color is just a constant thing throughout this. I just didn't really talk about it, but it's a part of every episode. And I think it's so interesting because usually it's part of like, hey, she does her hair and then like she wipes away the steam or like fog from the bathroom mirror, and then just like it cuts to another scene, right? But this time what it does, it continues it, and she looks at her new hair and she smiles, and I'm like, I don't know if that's supposed to be indicative of anything, because that's the first time we've ever gotten it, because it always stopped with her just staring in the mirror. But like maybe it's supposed to be indicative of, oh, I found a hairstyle that I'm gonna stick with for a while. Like maybe I won't be changing as much, because maybe changing a little bit is kind of indicative of like a little, maybe it's a little tied to the running away, but it's like maybe it's also like, I mean, each time it's like it's supposed to be a fresh start, but this is supposed to be a fresh start in the capacity of I'm not running away anymore. And she leaves, and obviously she's hanging out with everybody. So I'm like, oh, that's, I don't know. I feel like there's like, you could read into like that in particular, that difference from every other episode where she's changed her hair, like that scene being done differently. I feel like you can take a lot from that. But we also had Wallace, which I'm curious, is that like his Nintendo husband, or well, is that just someone along the way? But yeah, he's using all the money he made from the movie that never got made. And he's going like he's in like Paris or whatever. He meets someone, and I love that he kisses a guy and sparks, and he's like, "Wait, sparks are real?" So it's like, wow. So he actually was like, he was so nihilistic a little bit about the love situation. I'm like, sparks, whatever. I think he was always looking for a good time. So part of me wonders, I'm like, is that supposed to be his husband who works at Nintendo? Maybe he doesn't work there currently. Maybe he eventually will. So I don't know. I think it'd be nice, especially because then we know he gets married in the future. So it is that thing of so much of the future is unclear. So we don't know what the future does hold in some capacity. So it could be a thing of maybe we'll still end up down that road. But I think it's also like, no, things have kind of changed for the better. So Scott's life is going to go a different way, even though like, hey, things are changing here in present day, Scott's still in the future changing things too. So that's why I'm feeling like maybe it still will be that thing of, yeah, he can change things to make them for the better while things are changing. Because it was the thing of, oh, my memory's a little fuzzy. So it is a thing of, he does have memories from the past of things changing, but because of the changes, his memory's fuzzy about what's like canonical anymore. But kind of a really dope ending, and just kind of like, I was like, especially because I saw the epilogue in there, I was like, is this going to be the end? And then we get that little mid-credit thing with Julie and Gideon, and it's just like, oh, it's the goose is loose, fuckers. And I'm like, dude, I love that. I never would have expected that coupling to happen, and just like them being pure evil. So it's like, that's so interesting that evil exes are scattered around doing their own thing. So that's what I was bringing up before about, like, I don't know if this is a season finale. I mean, it could be a season finale, or it could serve as a series finale. It just all depends, because this I looked it up. At the time, there's not been anything announced. To be fair, the show just dropped yesterday. It takes Netflix a while before announcing something. It also depends on how well this did. It's one of those things of like, I would love more, because I really adore this and love it and so much fun. I'm curious to see what the story would also go from here if they continued it. Because like I said, like, this is also like a different telling of the comic book, so you're not as adherent. You could follow certain elements maybe that they didn't cover because they were doing a different retelling. But I mean, like I said, I figured, once again, I'm also speaking once again from ignorance of, I don't know everything that a comic entails or graphic novel entails. So I don't know if like there's some story beats and elements that weren't covered even in this remixed retelling that they could apply to a season 2. Or maybe they could just go like, no, like maybe get like Brian O'Malley's like blessings to like do their own thing for a potential season 2. That's where it's one of those endings where I'm like, I'm perfectly fine if you decide to end here. I'm like, it's a fun ride and let it be a one-off. But I'm also kind of like, but there's also the me that's like, I want more, because I'm me and I never want anything to end, because I love this. It's fun. It's charming. It's quirky and kooky, and it's just my jam. And I would love to kind of see this continue, you know, and see if that future that Scott and Ramona were kind of dealing with, if that ends up being the case, you know? Because like I said, because it is its own remix telling, it's not as adherent to the comic. So it is kind of like doing its own thing. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what decision ends up getting made, because it could also just be a creative decision like, well, Netflix doesn't give us one, but we're kind of happy the fact is it ended this way, so we're fine not getting a season 2. Or I don't know if the creators behind this, like, you know, just in general, like specifically anyone behind the show, or because I'm curious like how much input Brian O'Malley, who did the comic, or graphic novel, like how much input he had on like the structure of the season. Like, you know, like you take a One Piece thing, like Oda was very hands-on with that type of situation. You know, some people are a little more hands-on with their stuff being adapted, others not as much. It just depends, right? So I'm curious like how much he was involved in this creation, or how much the team leaned on him, like the writers and people, for creating this. But like, if we don't get another season, I just want to say, for one, first and foremost, I haven't talked about it the entire time, but it's like, it is so dope that we got the entire like live action cast back for this. That is so dope, and that is so amazing, and I'm so glad that we're able to. It just adds that extra layer of like, yeah, you know. So I think that's dope. But and they got to play these characters in a very different way. Also got to expand upon them and explore a little bit more of them that maybe they weren't able to do in the movie. So that's pretty dope. Also to the team who animated this. This was just phenomenally animated. It is so beautiful. It is so anime that I'm like, anyone, like, once again, I brought that up in the first episode. Shut up to anyone that's like, oh, it's not anime. It's like, even if you want to say like, oh, maybe it wasn't animated in Japan. I have no idea. Like I said, it might have been animated by like an anime-based company here in the US or Canada, wherever like the animation production stay. But either way, it was, it's oozing anime. It has all the anime like stylized choices and tropes and fun, and so it's just like, I do like that we are getting that more and more with not only, well, in this case Canadian, but you know, that American style like anime influence that's kind of, it's, you know, like a lot of stuff heavily leaning into it. Some just kind of style, like have some of that inspiration from it, but some just like really lean into like an anime stylization. And I think that's such a dope thing. Once again, just my point, I'm going on this whole tangent. Mad props to the animators, to the writers, to everyone involved in the show. Like I said, if we don't get a second season, I want to be able to say like, thank you for this great show. It was just so much fun. As someone who loves this, like I said, I've never read the comics, but I do love the movie. It's been a while since I've rewatched it in totality, but I remember loving this movie when I saw it in theaters. And it's just right up my alley of just like, I love it so much. And this was just a beautiful, like, not even like I said, it's almost an addition because of like the movie and this kind of remixing the story. It just felt like, it wasn't even like, oh, I'm not trying to pick one over the other. I love them both equally, because this is like, this show can act as a companion piece to the movie in some regards, because you'll be like, hey, the movie that was never made in an alternate timeline, it did get made, and we got that in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I love that this episode title is The World versus Scott Pilgrim, which I'm wondering is that might just, because even the title of the movie and this either or might just be titles from like issues in the comic. Maybe that whole, I didn't even talk about it either. I love that the intro, when the title card comes up, it doesn't say press start, it says, or, you know, I should have mentioned those more, because I love one of them said like 1 player, and then they scroll down to 2 player. This one says attack, which I thought was dope. So just little things like that. Just everyone did an amazing job with this series. So even if, like I said, if we don't get a second season, I just want to be able to put that out there. So, but like I said, I'm open either way. You want to make this a one and done, I'm perfectly fine. You want to do more, I'm definitely fine with that too. But I think I've rambled on enough. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.